He didn't say anything. He just stayed exactly 10 steps behind me the entire way. I remember the sound of his shoes most, how they echoed just after mine, like a perfectly timed echo that didn't quite belong. That's what stuck with me. That eerie rhythm. My steps. Then his. It was late, probably close to midnight. I'd been staring at my screen for hours, buried in lines of code that stopped making sense around 10:30. I do that sometimes. Work too long, forget to eat, then pace around the house like I've forgotten how to sit still. So I decided to take a walk, fresh air, let my brain reset. I live in Denver, in a pretty quiet neighborhood, upper middle class kind of quiet, wide sidewalks, trimmed hedges, motion lights that blink on like clockwork. It's safe, safe enough that I usually don't even think twice about taking walks at night, especially not here. But that night, instead of doing my usual loop around the main blocks, I took a different route. There's this side street a few blocks from my place, Tennyson Lane. I usually avoid it because it's narrow and barely lit, but I don't know. I guess I felt restless, like I needed to shake up the routine. I had just turned on to Tennyson when I heard it, the sound of footsteps behind me. Soft, steady. I glanced back casually, expecting to see someone walking their dog, maybe another insomniac like me. But there was just a man, alone, maybe 30 feet behind me, dressed in dark jeans and a heavy coat. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I remember thinking how odd it was that he wasn't looking at his phone. No earbuds, no leash, no distraction, just walking. Same pace as me. I told myself it was nothing. I wasn't the only person who walked at night. But after another 30 seconds, I realized he was still there. Same distance, same speed. I picked up my pace a bit. Nothing obvious. Just enough to see if he'd fall behind. He didn't stat. I slowed down. So did he. I stopped. So did he. My pulse started to thump in my ears. I crossed to the other side of the street, trying to play it off, like I just wanted to get a better look at a parked car or something. I cut right at the next intersection, not toward home, but deeper into the neighborhood, just to test him. And he followed, exactly 10 steps behind. I started walking faster, almost speed walking now, my breath visible in the cold air. I could hear his steps behind me, matching mine like a second heartbeat, always that same distance. Never closer, never farther. I glanced over my shoulder again. He was still there, still watching, still silent. The streetlights did this flickering thing above him. One would go out as he passed, blink back on after he was gone. I ducked into a small park at the end of the block. It's a little thing. One bench, a water fountain, a few trees. I stepped onto the path, then turned to look. He was standing at the edge of the sidewalk, just watching. His face was barely visible, but I could make out enough. He wasn't surprised, wasn't nervous, just waiting. I pulled out my phone, not to call anyone. I wasn't even thinking that clearly, but to start a live stream. I figured if anything happened, someone should see it. I opened the camera, started recording. I even narrated a little bit, trying to keep my voice calm, just in case. I stem walking home. I think I stem being followed. I whispered, this guy stem been behind me for at least 10 minutes. I don't sit know what he wants. I kept the phone up as I turned back toward my house, walking faster now. Not running, but close. I took the long way back to be sure. 3 extra turns, 1 alley shortcut, and every time I glanced back, he was there. 10 steps. Always 10. My own footsteps felt too loud now. Every porch light I passed clicked on, throwing sharp yellow light across the concrete. The shadows shifted with every motion. But no one came out. No cars passed. It felt like the whole neighborhood had gone still. I finally made it to my block, turned onto my street. My legs ached, and my breath was getting ragged. The lights from my porch never looked so comforting. I dug the key out of my coat pocket with shaking hands. I did not look back this time. I didn't want to. I got to the door, unlocked it, slipped inside, and shut it behind me with a slam. I double locked it and stood there in the entryway, heart racing. Then I crept up to the peephole. No one was there, just the porch, silent, empty. I waited, counted to 30, still nothing. Eventually, I went to my desk, still clutching my phone like a lifeline. I opened the video to rewatch it, hoping to see proof, some kind of validation that I wasn't just being paranoid. The audio played fine. My voice, my breathing, the footsteps. But the video? Just static. From the exact moment I mentioned being followed, it glitched, froze, pixels bleeding into each other. When it cleared, I was alone in the frame, walking, talking, glancing over my shoulder at nothing. I checked the footage from my Ring camera next. It showed me walking up to my door, slightly out of breath, alone. No one behind me, no man in the background, just me. I sat there for hours, trying to make sense of it. Maybe the guy peeled off before I got home. Maybe I imagined the footsteps. Maybe I was just fried from too much caffeine and not enough sleep. But in the morning, when I opened the door to grab the paper, I saw it. A single muddy footprint on the welcome mat. Not mine, too large. And under the door, a slip of torn paper. No envelope, just folded once in half. Inside, in faint pencil, "See you tonight." I haven't walked at night since. I always cut through the woods to get home, until the night the woods didn't end. It had been a long shift. My back hurt, my feet were sore, and my brain was running on autopilot. That little bookstore on campus, where I worked, barely made enough money to justify staying open past 10 p.m. But there I was, doing inventory until midnight, because the new hire forgot to show up. I was used to it though. I didn't have a car, and Ubers out in rural Pennsylvania are laughably rare after dark. So I walked, 20 minutes, give or take. There was a paved route that looped around campus, but I never took it. The shortcut through the woods was faster, just a dirt trail that cut through an old park no one really used anymore. I'd taken it dozens of times. Familiar, safe. That night was especially quiet. No breeze, no animals rustling in the underbrush, not even the faint hum of traffic from the main road, just the sound of my own boots, crunching gravel. I wasn't scared at first. I know how it sounds. Young woman walking alone at night through the woods. But it never felt like that. The trail was lined with old lampposts. Half of them didn't work, but you got used to the rhythm of light. Dark, light again. But about 5 minutes in, I noticed something weird. The halfway point, the section with the bench and trash can, and that broken emergency call box wasn't there. I stopped walking. The air felt heavier, still cold, but thicker somehow. I told myself I was just tired, disoriented from the long shift. I kept going, watching my feet. Gravel crunched beneath each step. That part was still normal, but the woods didn't change. No clearing, no new bends, no signs I was getting anywhere. I pulled out my phone to check my location. No service. Not unusual. Some parts of the trail were dead zones, but usually the pin would still hover somewhere nearby. This time it was just spinning, floating in the middle of green nothingness. That's when the silence started getting to me. Not quiet. Silent. No insects. No wind. No distant dogs barking. Just my own breathing. And the echo of it inside my chest. I walked faster. I kept looking for familiar landmarks. The tree with the hollow base. The wooden sign that warned about ticks in the summer. Nothing. Just woods. I started to feel watched. Not followed exactly, but observed. Like something was standing just behind a tree, not moving, waiting. I stopped again and turned around. Nothing. But then movement. Behind me, a few yards back, I heard it. A slow, heavy shuffle, like something dragging its feet through loose gravel and wet leaves. I called out before I could stop myself. Hello? Silence. I waited. Maybe it was an animal, or someone messing around, but nothing moved again. I thought about calling someone, anyone, but still no signal. I made the decision to veer off the trail. It was a dumb idea, but I figured if I walked in a straight line through the trees, I'd eventually hit the road. Worst case, I'd loop back to the campus. I'd seen maps before. The forest wasn't that big. So I stepped off the path and started moving between the trees. 5 minutes. 10. Branches whipped against my coat. Thorns scraped my legs. I tried to keep a straight line, even marked a few trees with small rips of paper from my pocket to make sure I wasn't circling. Then I stepped out of the underbrush and found myself back on the trail. Same spot. I knew, because of the broken tree limb, the one that looked like a twisted claw reaching across the path, and the empty soda can crushed into the dirt nearby. I'd passed them 10 minutes earlier. I felt this jolt in my stomach, like static through my spine. I tried again. Another direction. Same result. Back on the trail, same broken tree, same can. That dragging sound started again. Closer this time. I turned, flashlight in hand, shaky. I scanned the trees. Nothing. Then it blinked out. The flashlight. Dead, like the batteries had been yanked all at once. I stood there in the pitch black, heart hammering, breathing way too loud. The dragging moved again behind me, but closer, maybe 20 feet. I ran. I didn't care if I tripped or tore my coat or twisted an ankle. I ran. I felt branches clawing at my arms, heard the frantic beat of my footsteps on the gravel. Then, headlights. A flicker of white light through the trees. I ran toward them, like my life depended on it. I didn't even stop to look where I was going. I just followed the light, pushing through bushes and undergrowth. Suddenly I hit concrete and collapsed forward onto a sidewalk. Bright lights. Voices. I stumbled out in front of a gas station. Not the one near campus, a different one, nearly 2 miles from where the trail should have ended. The attendant came running out, asking if I was okay. I was shaking so hard I could barely talk. I managed to say something about being lost in the park, how the trail just wouldn't end, how I'd been walking for over an hour. He looked at me, like I was speaking another language. "What trail?" he asked. "This area SIP's been fenced off for years. There's SIP's no entrance here. Just woods. Old state land. Been closed since before I moved here." I made him repeat it twice. The next day, in daylight, I tried going back. There was no entrance. Just chain link fencing wrapped in thick vines. No break in it. No dirt trail. Not even a hint of one. I showed a friend where I thought I entered the woods the night before. All we found was an empty lot and a worn-down no trespassing sign. I haven't taken that shortcut since. And the worst part? Sometimes, in that empty stretch between sleep and waking, I still hear the sound of gravel shifting behind me. Steady, slow, like something still walking the trail, waiting for me to come back. She just kept walking beside the tracks, barefoot, bleeding and humming. That's what I remember most. The humming. It wasn't a tune exactly, just this low, uneven sound, like someone trying to remember a lullaby they'd half forgotten. I lived just outside Nashville, in one of those quiet towns where everything shuts down by 10. I'm 34. I work from home, mostly freelance web design, and I don't sleep all that well. So late night walks became part of my routine. Nothing too adventurous, just loops around the block. Or sometimes, if I needed to clear my head, I'd head out to the old railroad tracks behind my apartment complex. They're not in use anymore. Haven't been for decades, I think. Overgrown in places, rusted and cracked in others. but there's still a footpath along the gravel, and at night it's peaceful. No cars, no people, just the hum of bugs and the occasional dog barking in the distance. That night started out like any other. It was just past 12:30 a.m., cool enough to wear a jacket, but not cold. I had music in one earbud, one out just in case I ran into anyone. I stood walked, maybe 10 minutes when I saw her. At first, it was just a shape ahead of me. Thin, slow moving, swaying slightly. A woman. She was walking along the tracks, maybe 20 yards ahead. She wasn't staggering like she was drunk or lost, but there was something strange about the way she moved. Like each step was rehearsed, too precise, too deliberate. She was wearing a long, pale nightgown, the kind you'd expect to see in an old hospital, or maybe a vintage sleepwear ad. It was loose, almost torn in places, and her long hair hung in front of her face like a curtain, barefoot, and definitely alone. I slowed down. She didn't look like she was in a rush, didn't look back, just kept walking and humming. I paused the music in my ear and listened. It wasn't a song I recognized, just this off-kilter melody, flat notes, almost tuneless, drifting in and out of rhythm. It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and I told myself that maybe she was just sleepwalking, or maybe she needed help. "Hey," I called out. "Are you okay?" She didn't respond, didn't flinch, didn't turn, just kept walking. I didn't want to scare her, so I kept my distance. But something wasn't right. I picked up my pace slightly, hoping to get a better look, maybe enough to see her face or figure out what direction she was headed. That's when I noticed her feet. Red smears marked the old wooden railroad ties behind her. Not just dirt, blood. Her soles were cut, badly, torn in places like she'd been walking barefoot a long time. The way she stepped, it must have hurt, but she didn't show it, not even a wince. I felt this wave of unease rise in my chest. I pulled out my phone and called 911. "Yeah, I'm walking near the old tracks behind Maple Avenue." I told the dispatcher, "There sips a woman out here. She sips barefoot. She might be hurt." The operator asked for more details, landmarks, cross streets, but I realized I had none to give. The track curved slightly. There were no signs, no houses nearby, no lights, just endless gravel and trees on both sides. "How far from the Maple Ave entrance?" they asked. I don't know," I stammered. 15, maybe 20 minutes walking." There was a pause. "We'll send someone to the general area," they said. "But if you feel unsafe, please return home." I hung up, frustrated. I looked back up the tracks. She was still there. Same distance, same humming. Then she stopped, mid-step, like someone pressed pause on her body. Slowly, she turned her head, not all the way, just enough for me to see part of her face through the curtain of hair. Her eyes were wide, too wide, and her mouth, it didn't look right, stretched strangely, like it had forgotten how to close. My breath caught. I didn't say anything this time, just stared. She didn't move for a long moment. Then, without warning, she turned back around and resumed walking. Still humming, still bleeding. I don't remember making the decision, but I started backing away, slowly at first, then faster. I kept my eyes on her the whole time, heart pounding in my ears. I looked down for just a second to check my phone again. Still no service, no new texts, nothing. When I looked up again, she was gone. The tracks were empty. I spun around. Nothing behind me. No figure. No footsteps. No sound. The woods were dead silent. I called out again, my voice cracking this time. "Hello? Are you there?" Only my echo came back. I stood there for what felt like forever before I finally started walking, back the way I came, retracing every step, with a growing sense of dread, like something was just outside my line of sight, watching, waiting. I eventually made it back to the fence behind my apartment, climbed over it, stumbled up the stairs, didn't even take off my shoes before collapsing into bed. The next morning, I called the local police station to follow up. I gave them the whole story again, start to finish. The guy on the phone barely reacted. Saw someone walking the tracks, huh? He said. Happens more than you said think. Mostly runaways or people out of it on something. Nothing we can really do, unless there sits a clear emergency. I asked if anyone else had called in about her. He said no. I asked if they found anything. Nope, no one out there, he replied. Just old track and woods. I didn't press it. What was I supposed to say? That she bled and hummed and disappeared into thin air? I tried to let it go, but 3 days later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single black and white photo, old, worn at the corners. It showed a woman walking barefoot along railroad tracks, head down, hair tangled, bleeding, humming. I don't know who sent it. I don't know when it was taken. But I swear it's the same woman, same nightgown, same walk. And something tells me she sits still out there, still pacing those tracks, waiting for someone else to follow.